Hi everyone, it's Rabbi Eisenberger, and today we'll talk why you keep having arguments. And I have this a lot. A lot of people who come to me, they complain that they keep having arguments in their relationship, in their marriage, and they really want to have a happy life, a calm life, and they don't know why it happens time and time again that they're having arguments. So the reason, first of all, you should know that the reason why you're having arguments, it comes from a place that you want to improve your marriage. You really want to be happy with your spouse. Just what happens is you you want to reignite the spark and passion in your marriage. You want to be more happy. You want to be closer to your spouse. But what happens is you want to change. You go into the place on wanting to change your spouse, changing their behavior, changing their way of communicating, changing, getting them to change, and that's the way you want to improve your marriage, and that's the way you want to bring in the passion and happiness in the marriage. The issue with that is that it never works because no one wants to be changed, and it's vice versa. It works the same way that when your spouse wants to change you and wants to improve the marriage the way that you change, you see that it won't work because the more when someone pushes, you're pushing back. That's the nature of human beings. So the second you want to change your spouse wants to change you and doesn't. The main thing is your spouse doesn't want to change at that moment. So this is the first thing that, and that's what gets you into arguments. Because when you see someone who wants to change you, it can happen with parents, with children, with friends, with anybody. When you see that someone wants to change you, you resist. And that's what happens when you communicate, you try to communicate, you try to improve your marriage, you try to get back that spark and passion, and you want your spouse to change in order to get back your spark and passion. What happens is your spouse resists, and the same way your spouse wants to change you, you resist, and it ends up in an argument. And the second thing, what happens is, why you end up in arguments is because you try to explain yourself. When you discuss something and you're just trying to explain yourself, you can't really communicate in a loving way. Because what happens is both spouses, you and your spouse, both are trying to explain themselves, so nobody is listening. You don't get anywhere. And that's what gets you into arguments, because you try to explain yourself, your spouse is trying to explain themselves, and you are just two people who try to explain themselves. They just argue, and you don't get anywhere. And the third thing is you want to be right. When you come to a discussion, and you want to be right, and you want your spouse to accept your opinion, what happens is sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. You're not always right. And what happens is when you want to be always right, you think you just want to be right. You're not there just for the opinion. You're not there just for the best for us. What happens is it ends up in an argument. And really, it comes from a place that you want to be close to your spouse. You want to be one with your spouse. You want to be in love. You want to be in the same opinion with your spouse. And when you see that doesn't happen, when you have different opinions, you just get frustrated and you go into arguments. And so what you really want to do instead is understand that you are two different people and accept your spouse, accept the way they are. And what you really want to do is and we explain that in depth in the 5 shifts in our webinar. And that's what you really want to do if you really want to avoid arguments, if you want to avoid screaming, if you want to get back. And what happens is when you have arguments, you stop to talk, you stop to communicate altogether. And then what happens is your spouse may walk out or tell you, we need to talk, and I'm not in love anymore, I don't know what to do. And then your kids get destroyed, because divorce is the worst thing that you can do for your kids. When I see children, when I go to the synagogue and I see children from a divorce home, there's a boy from the divorce home in our synagogue, and in our Besmedish, and when I go there and I see him, his life is sucked out of his life. He doesn't have a life to him. And this happens with all children when their parents divorce, because they blame themselves. They think they are at fault, and usually they don't talk about it. And most of the time, the parents are talking their hardships to the children, and this destroys them the most, because what children really need is a happy home, a home that the husband and wife, their father and their mother love each other, are close to each other, respect each other. And that's the most important thing that children need for their upbringing. So what you really want to do is go watch the webinar, do the 5 shifts, and you will see any place your marriage is, you can transform with these 5 shifts. We had people who got their ex back. We had people who were separated and they got a wife back, and all kinds of people. And all this started with doing the 5 shifts. And I go in depth how to do that. And by doing the 5 shifts, the arguments, you will know how to communicate. You will know exactly what to do to be able to have nice conversations, comfortable conversations. So go do the 5 shifts. If you have any question, feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. Let me look in the comments if someone has any questions. So I will put the link of the 5 shifts in the webinar, so you can do it. And we'll talk soon. All the best.